Magandang hapon po mga kababayan. Kayo'y nakikinig dito lamang sa Radyo Migrante. Ako po si Waynes, kasama nyo sa kwentuhan at kulitan, pati na rin sa pagserbisyo sa bayan. Ang tema ng ating episode today ay ang mga epekto ng militarisasyon sa ating bayan, sa lipunan, sa kabuhayan at sa kalikasan.
Magandang araw, ako si Jules. Kung nasa break naman o nagkakape at nagpapahinga sa bahay, hello po sa ating mga manggagawa na nakikinig ngayong hapon. Shoutout nga pala sa listener natin from Instagram na si Rich. Ito yung comment niya under our 10 episode celebration post. Sabi niya, "You are all doing amazing work. Appreciate everyone talking about these topics that need to be brought up. Makibaka." Maraming salamat din sa iyo, Rich.
Oo nga, meron pala tayong listener dyan. Samahan nyo kami sa ating episode 13 ngayong June 4, 2023 para sa mga usaping nakasentro sa epekto ng militarisasyon sa ating bayan. Follow nyo na rin kami sa Instagram at Facebook. Hanapin lang ang Radyo Migrante Toronto. At kung gusto nyong pakinggan ang mga dating episodes, bisitahin lang ang aming YouTube account.
Excited na ba kayo para sa episode na to? Halina't abangan ng aming top news. Kilalanin din natin ang nang maigi kung sino ba si Jennifer Laude. Magbabasa din tayo ng tula ni Joi Barrios-Leblanc. At syempre, ang PULSO segment mula sa mga umattend ng protest against the military weapons trade show ng CANSEC sa Ottawa.
Makakasama din natin sa ating Pinoy TaU segment si Viviana Merina ng International Migrants Alliance para pag-usapan ang epekto ng militarisasyon. Sige, tara umpisahan na natin dahil marami tayong malalim na usapan today. Ang ating top 2 news this week para sa unang balita mula sa business world. House adopts Senate version of MIF bill. Pinagtibay ng House of Representatives ang Senate version ng proposed Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill na Maharlika Investment Fund matapos aprubahan ng Senado ang panukala sa madaling araw ng Miyerkules pagkatapos ng 12 hours ng debate. Ang Maharlika Investment Fund or MIF ay isang bill na nangangailangan na lamang ng signature ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. bago ito maging batas. Ang initial capital para sa MIF ay magmumula sa Land Bank of the Philippines na pamumuhunan ng 50 billion pesos. Ang Development Bank of the Philippines ay maglalagay ng 25 billion pesos habang ang 50 billion pesos ay magmumula sa national government. Kasama sa Senado ang isang probisyon na ipinagbabawal ang mga government pension funds sa pag-ambag ng seed capital para sa MIF. Sinabi ni Ibon Foundation Executive Director Jose Enrique Africa na ang latest version ng panukalang batas ay ginagawa pa rin ang MIF na vulnerable sa misuse, corruption at undue influence. Ang sabi niya, quote, "The haste in pushing the Maharlika funds is dubious with Congress and the economic managers are unfortunately acting on political compulsion rather than based on the better development interest of the nation." End quote. Sinabi din ni David Michael San Juan, isang professor sa De La Salle University at convener ng Professionals for the Progressive Economy, na ang MIF ay sinusuportahan ng gobyerno at taxpayers' money. Quote, "Its investments are not guaranteed to reap profits and there's a possibility that the fund would lose money." End quote. Anong masasabi mo dyan, Jules?
Ewan ko lang pero itong Maharlika Funds ay isang napakalantarang scam. Kaba ng bayan kasi yung pinag-uusapan at hindi din malinaw ang gobyerno kung saan ito gagamitin at kung bakit minamadali ang pagpasa ng bill na ito. Napakaraming mga mamamayang Pilipino ang maapektuhan nito, Waynes, pati na rin tayo na nandito sa ibang bansa. Dagdag pa dyan, Waynes, tumaas pa ang utang ng Pilipinas in 10 months under Marcos Jr.'s administration ng 1.11 trillion pesos. So ang total ay 13.91 trillion pesos na ang utang ng Pilipinas. At dahil nga maapektuhan ang milyong-milyong mga Pilipino na nasa Pilipinas, pati na din ng mga migrant workers sa mga ibang bansa, babasahin ko lang ang statement ng Migrante International. Ito yung sinabi nila. "The red flags in the proposal are too numerous, especially for overseas Filipino workers and migrant Filipinos who, with our financial remittances, keep the Philippine economy afloat. A provision in the Senate bill may allow OFW and workers' funds in the Social Security System, Overseas Worker Welfare Administration, and others to become sources of the fund. At the same time, how the investment fund will actually generate returns on investment remains unclear. And this means OFW and workers' funds are being made vulnerable to corruption, mismanagement, and even bankruptcy. Yun po ang statement ng Migrante International.
Importante talagang tutukan ito ng taong bayan dahil ang pera ng taong bayan at paghihirap ng taong bayan sa kanilang paggawa, yan ang ipinupusta ng gobyerno sa isang investment na wala namang kasiguraduhan. Para naman sa pangalawa at huling balita mula sa Omni Filipino News, ang bagong Consul General of Philippine Consulate tinanggap ng Filipino community sa Toronto. Noong May 26, pinagtipon ni Angelica Escalona ang mga ilang Filipino community representatives at leaders para sa isang malakihang kwentuhan daw. Wala pang isang linggo sa pagdating ni Escalona dito sa Canada. Nabigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga Filipino representatives na may ibahagi ang kanilang mga concerns kay Escalona. Ang balita ko rin, during this kwentuhan, isa sa mga tanong na na-raise ng kababayan natin ay to improve daw ang services sa Philippine Consulate. Ang sabi, karamihan sa mga migranteng manggagawa, ang day off lang nila ay sa weekend. So dapat sana mayroong mga open services from Philippine Consulate during the weekend. Dahil nga, yun lang ang day off nila. So, wala pa tayong kasiguraduhan kung ito ba ay tutugunan ng bagong Consul General ng Philippine Consulate, pero sana ay ito ay isa sa mga prioridad dahil isa talaga siya sa mga pangangailangan ng migrant workers. Ayan, patuloy po kayong nakikinig sa Radyo Migrante dito sa Toronto's Best Filipino Community Program, Vibe 105. Natunghayan po ninyo ang mga balita at ngayon naman magbalik tanaw tayo sa kasaysayan at kultura ng Pilipinas. Pakinggan po natin.
Ako po ulit si Jules, bringing you today's segment of Ang Ating Kasaysayan. Tara, let's learn more about our history to remind ourselves that history is not just information of the past, but history is a way that we get to know more about ourselves as Filipinos and our culture. May iba tayo today, Waynes, ha? Let's listen to a clip from the National Day of Outrage for Jennifer Laude back in 2014.
We need to educate society about transgender. I think the general consensus that we have is that transgender women are considered gays or just are considered men, not really women. So in terms of educating people about different kinds of sexuality, different kinds of gender expression, we need to do a lot of that because people still see the world as just between men and women. They don't see the full spectrum of gender identity. So we need to really work on that because I think that's where all this discuss, all this bias comes from.
Noong October 11, 2014, pinaslang ng Marine Officer Joseph Pemberton si Jennifer Laude, a transgender woman of Olongapo City. It's been almost 10 years, pero bakit nasa malay pa ng mga kapang Pilipino ang istoryang ito? The murder of Jennifer Laude ay hindi lamang murder, but a brutal hate crime against for who Jennifer was, a transgender woman. Nag-umpisa ang storya na to with the VFA or the Visiting Forces Agreement where Joseph Pemberton was in the Philippines for a balikatan exercise sa Olongapo. During his day off, Joseph Pemberton met Jennifer and her friend in a nightclub. Then they left for a nearby motel afterwards. Laude, Pemberton, and Gilviro arrive at the motel at the same time, and after checking in, Gilviro leaves the pair in the room. Approximately 30 minutes later, Pemberton walks out of the room alone. The next day, it was brought up to the police, and according to the police report, natuklasan nila ang bangkay ni Jennifer with signs of asphyxiation. Once they have identified that Joseph Pemberton as a suspect, based on the investigative report, when Joseph Pemberton discovered Jennifer was quote-unquote gay, it prompted him to kill the victim, allegedly acted out of self-defense. Local police called it a hate crime, and it was proven that Pemberton was found guilty beyond reasonable doubt of homicide by the Olongapo City Regional Trial Court or RTC, and was sentenced to 6 to 12 years of imprisonment back in December 2015. The court also granted a total of 4.6 million pesos or equivalent of $97,500 in damages to the Laude family. But due to Visiting Forces Agreement or VFA, the US took custody of Pemberton and was brought to the same detention facility of the Joint U.S. Military Assistance Group, or JUSMAG, inside the Armed Forces of the Philippines headquarters in Camp Aguinaldo in Quezon City. In short, Pemberton was not fully penalized through the extent of Philippine law. Tsaka dagdag pa doon, a year later, binabaan ang sentence ni Pemberton to 10 years and was denied bail. And then, moving forward to 2020, former President Rodrigo Duterte granted pardon for Pemberton, where he is now back walking free in the US.
Maraming salamat, Jules, sa pag-share sa atin ng information about dito sa murder case ni Jennifer Laude. Alam ko nga na merong documentary tungkol dito sa kasong ito called Call Her Ganda. So, if people haven't watched that documentary, I really highly recommend it. Kasi ipinapakita niya na kung paanong itong bayan nating Pilipinas, maraming talaga siyang polisiya na unfair, unequal, 'di ba? Between these foreign countries at sa Pilipinas. At isang malaking example diyan ang Visiting Forces Agreement na kung saan pinakita talaga sa atin na it's more catering towards the interest of the US. At importante pag-usapan to ngayon, lalo na ngayong Pride Month, na kung saan ang violensya towards the LGBTQ community laganap pa rin. Kung alam na nga natin na sa bawat, sa dumadaming military bases, ay dumadami ang kasong abuse sa LGBTQ community, sa mga kababaihan, sa mga kabataan. Tapos, ang focus pa rin is paramihin pa ang militarisasyon at talagang ibinebenta ang kaligtasan ng Pilipino, ng taong bayan.
At dyan nagtatapos ang ating Ang Kasaysayan segment para sa episode na to. Alam ko na mabigat siya, pero patuloy pa din ang paglaban sa hustisya para kay Jennifer Laude. At andyan din ang mga progresibong organizations katulad ng Bahaghari Philippines, the LGBT organization in the Philippines, at saka ang Gabriela, which is an all-women's organization in the Philippines para sa pagpapaalis ng mga military bases sa Pilipinas ngayon. Sana ay hindi tayo mawalan ng pag-asa. Did you learn something new about yourself or your family? Share nyo yan sa aming Facebook page. Hanapin lang ang Radyo Migrante and join us again next week para sa maraming pang-pag-aaral ng ating history.
Patuloy po kayong nakikinig sa Radyo Migrante dito sa Toronto's Best Filipino Community Program, Vibe 105. At para naman sa susunod na segment, lumubog tayo sa ating kulturang Pilipino. Ako si Waynes, naghahandog sa inyo ng ating performance para sa linggong ito. Nais nyo bang makadiskubre ng mga makabuluhang kanta at tula na nagmumula sa iba't ibang musikero at makata? Ang segment na ito ay magsisilbing espasyo para sa iba't ibang pagtatanghal ng mga talento ng ating kababayang Pilipino. Para sa linggong ito, handog namin sa inyo ang tulang Ang Pagiging Babae ay Pamumuhay sa Panahon ng Digma ni Joi Barrios-Leblanc.
Ang pagiging babae ay pamumuhay sa panahon ng digma. Noon at ngayon, walang humpay na pakikibaka. Ang kinin ng katawan, ang sinapupunang nagtatakda ng kasarian. Mga suso na ipinambebenta ng produkto sa merkado, ang poke, salitang dapat masambit ng marinig kong mangungusap ng sakit, ligaya o hirap. Ang kinin ng pasyang magsilang o hindi magsilang. Labanan ng pandarahas, pantal at maga, sugat at balat, at sa kaloob-looban, pagkataong wasak. Buuin muli ang sarili at iabot ang palad sa kabarot kapatid. Walang dapat mananahimik hanggat may biktima ng pananakit. Ang pagiging babae sa aking bayan ay pamumuhay sa panahon ng digma at higit pa sa pag-angkin sa katawan at paglaban sa dahas ang panawagan sa ating lahat. Pag-aralan ang kasaysayan ng pag-angkin, ang kulay puting dayuhang mapaniil. Ang taas noong Panginoong may lupa na ayaw bumitiyo sa lupang binubungkal ng bilad sa araw ng magsasakat manggagawang bukid. Ang bundat na kapitalistang kung ituring ang manggagawa na kandakuba sa pagsikhay ay palamuning alipin. Unawain ang dahas ng sikmurang gutom, dahas na dulot ng kahirapan, kahirapang dulot ng sagat-butong pagsamantala. Kahirapang dulot ng sagat-butong pagsasamantala. Unawain ang mga digmaan sa ating bayan. May digmaan para sa pagsasarili at digmaang pagtatanggol sa naaapi. Ang pagiging babae sa panahon ng digma ay pagdinig ng tawag sa pagtindig. Ang pagiging babae sa panahon ng digma ay pagdinig ng tawag ng pagtindig. Babae kang nasa panahon ng pagbabalikwas at paghihimagsik.
Ganda ng pagkabasa mo, Jules. At talagang timely siya sa ating discussion today, sa tema ng ating episode na to, na kung saan pinag-uusapan natin ang mga militarisasyon, ang mga nangyaring digmaan, at ang paborito kong parte ng tulang ito ay itong nung sinabi niyang unawain ang mga digmaan sa ating bayan. May digmaang para sa pagsasarili at digmaang pagtatanggol sa naaapi. Katulad na lang din doon sa Pilipinas, alam natin na merong digmaan sa ating bayan. Ang ugat ng digmaan sa ating bayan ay dahil sa bayolente, brutal, hindi makatao at mapaniil na Panginoong may lupa ng mga kapitalista, ng mga militar ng estado. Lahat ito nagko-contribute dun sa pangangailangan ng digmaang para sa kalayaan ng lahat ng naaapi. Talagang malalim ang mga usapan natin this episode. Ayan, muli ako si Waynes, lagi niyong maaasahan na maghahandog ng makabuluhang musika, tula at marami pang iba na nagdidiwang ng kulturang Pilipino. Dito lang sa Radyo Migrante 105.5 FM.
Sa ating PULSO segment, pakinggan natin ang mga saloobin ng mga dumalo sa Annual Weapons Industry Convention hosted by Canadian Association of Defense and Security Industries or CANSEC. Tara, pakinggan po natin.
Shut down CANSEC! Canada out! A NATO and NORAD!
We're here right now at in front of EY Center in Ottawa. Progressive allies and organizations are gathered around to protest against the Annual Weapons Industry Convention hosted by CANSEC.
Ang CANSEC, samahan ng mga lahat ng mga malalaking kumpanya that engage in the construction of war machine. And siyempre, sino ang unang biktima niyan kundi ang ating mga kababayan at ang mga migrante na kailangang umalis dahil wala nang kabuhayan sa ating bayan.
It's important to get face-to-face with these arms dealers and make sure that they know that there is resistance to what they're doing. The few at the top are getting rich while the whole world is suffering as a result. So this greed and this profit is only for the very few, and we're in a climate emergency. There's a threat of nuclear war. We could all be wiped off the planet. Everybody should care about this, and more people should come and join us.
What do you think is the importance of protesting against the Weapons Convention by CANSEC?
I'm here to protest against arms sales and to call for a stop to the arms trade. Canada is selling weapons to regimes which are killing civilians, to the Saudis which are bombing Yemen, to Israel which is leading a genocide against the Palestinian people, to the Peruvian police who's shooting down on protesters. And you have all these arms manufacturers here saying that, and Canada being complicit in those war crimes.
We're witnessing some police pushing some of the protesters.
Guys, really aware that's what you're at. So make sure you film this. We're arresting me for a peaceful protest to the CANSEC. We are a group here in Ottawa, united around our goal of building a movement of ordinary, working-class people against imperialism. We are here today to stand against the arms dealers and the politicians, those who are attending CANSEC to profit from war and repression. This is not something that is remote to us here in Canada. We have the killers and the profiteers right here. One of the companies that is inside that building right now is called Canada, who are the largest arms supplier to the RCMP. The RCMP bought more than $9 million worth of weapons from Colt Canada
In 2016, the RCMP has used extreme violence against indigenous people on this land for over a century. Shame! 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 Shame!
At iyan po ang ating PULSO segment sa linggong ito. Maraming salamat sa mga dumalo sa Annual Weapons Industry Convention hosted by CANSEC sa pakikipagbahagi ng kanilang karanasan.
Patuloy po kayong nakikinig sa Radyo Migrante dito sa Toronto's Best Filipino Community Program, Vibe 105. Huwag kayong aalis mga kababayan. Makakasama natin si Viviana Merina, a Mexican organizer from the International Migrants Alliance, at pag-uusapan tungkol sa annual largest North American trade show hosted by Canadian Association of Defense and Security Industries or CANSEC na ginanap sa Ottawa noong May 31. Mapapakinggan po natin yan after the break.
Ayan, ako po ang inyong host, si Jules, sa ating Pinoy TaU segment o Pinoy Talakayan at Usapan. Dito natin mapakikinggan ang talambuhay ng ating mga kababayan na migrant workers, international students, at iba pa. Halina't pakinggan po natin ang fresh na perspectives ng ating mga kababayang Filipino. Our next guest is Viviana Merina, a Mexican organizer from the International Migrants Alliance and a worker currently based in Montreal. She was one of the many protesters outside of this year's CANSEC Military Weapons Trade Show. She attended as a representative of the International Migrants Alliance, which is a member organization of the International League of People's Struggles, or ILPS. Mapakikinggan din natin ang usapan nila Viviana Merina at Radyo Migrante member Sofia de Guzman.
Perfecto. Can I start by asking you your name and your organization that you work with?
Okay, I'm Viviana Merina, and I'm working in Montreal in Immigrant Workers Center. That is an organization who defend and organize workers since 22 years before, and I'm community organizer. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And how did you find out about CANSEC?
Because also I forgot to tell to say that at the same time my center is part of the Migrant Alliance, and also this is a network in international network. And also there is a few members, several members in Canada, and I'm a coordinator of this alliance. So yesterday I participated in the name with IMA, International Migrant Alliance. So I here because I have a lot of members that also they are part in ILPS.
Okay, awesome. And why was your group specifically protesting CANSEC? What does it mean for you guys to protest CANSEC?
I mean, for me, it's important because I'm from Mexico and I defend them and I organize workers from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Latin America. So the minings in Latin America, the Canadian minings are very, I mean, we have a lot, and they make alliance with the crime or the organized crime that also with the governments, you know. So in Mexico, they help to militarize Mexico. No, the Canada is training our army. So and this force people to migrate I mean, it's important to protest, and we know that the international political in Canada is very aggressive in our country. So, I mean, for example, now in Peru, they sell arms there, and there is I mean, for everywhere. No, the mining is for everywhere. They sell a lot of arming and everywhere, so it's important. It's all this is connected.
All of these issues are connected.
Yeah.
And what do you think Canada should do to support your protest against CANSEC?
I mean, what does it mean? The Canada, the people of Canada, or the government of Canada? I don't
The
understand.
government of Canada.
They just need to stop this. I mean, they need to stop do that, and also they need to reform their their political issues, because when I talk about mining, they are very aggressive here, even in Canada, for indigenous people. So this is, the name is capitalism, I mean, we need to change that. Because if we continue in this system, the issues will continue, no? I mean, I think it's very important for us, people like you and me and everywhere else, that struggle day by day for eat, for food, for housing, for work, I mean, we need to change that. We need to inform us what is happening with Canada outside and inside of Canada. What is the role the Canada in our country, here in his country? So we need to change that. We need to make a people's army, because this is we live in this system that is continually reproducing capitalism and aggressions, and that all of this issue that we try to struggle in.
Okay, thank you. And you already said this a little bit, but I also want to ask, like more specifically, what are the impacts of militarization on your community?
I mean, Mexico is supposedly a democratic country, but now we have a democratic government. But before that was very nearly I don't know how to say, but very aggressive government. And Canada helps to training the army in Mexico. So, but still, even with I mean, the militarization, but of course, when the country was under the army, and with the name of the struggle to the cartels of drugs, was very aggressive to people, to simple people. A lot of people die in the name of this war against cartels, but it was not true, because the army was out in the streets, and a lot of women was violated, abusive, killed. Kids also, a lot of violation, humans rights, no, a lot of things, bad things happen, and this issue and this war was Canada very active to training our army. So this is the impact. So but still now is not like this. but the role in Canada is in Mexico is very aggressive, and through the minings, no. Also, I mean, just I want to tell something. We are a country that we have a colonization, colonized by Spanish people, but in 200 years of colonialism, Canada, we have 200 years of that. Canada, in 20 years, they still more golden that the Spanish took in 200 years. Do you know what I mean? I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an example, you know? It's like just in 20 years, Canada takes that in 200 years, Spanish people took. So, stall, I mean, this is an example. And this is continue until now. So, that's where we have.
Wow, that's a really good way of putting it. And so my last question to you is, people protest CANSEC every year. And, even still this year, the conference kept going. So I want to ask you, why is it important that even though the conference hasn't been stopped, why is it important that people continue to protest CANSEC?
I mean, it's important. It's important to be there and to protest. And it's important for us to start mobilize more people, because I'm sure that a lot of people doesn't know, like me. This is for me the first year, and I didn't know that. So people doesn't know. We have to make a lot of strategy, a new even we need to sensibilize people to talk about it, because people doesn't know that it's important to see what is happening here and what Canada is just like welcome this kind of event, horrible event, to sell weapons. So nobody knows, only a few people. So for me, it's important to start talking about, but because it's great that the people several years were there, but we need to give the more information for those who doesn't know, because I think when I related this with what happened just in our country outside, because Canada has the very, very aggressive political outside, and when we are facing every day the impacts of that, and we are facing the forced migration every part, for everywhere, for this political, but nobody is struggling with this when what is happening here. And this is the result when and CANSEC is the beginning of what is happened after, is this is the beginning of all the other issues happen. So it's very important to be there, to protesting, to invite more people, to be better, to try to do the best and the best way for every year. And it's very, very important.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's my last question. Thank you so much for speaking with me, and thank you so much for speaking with Radio Migrante. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate the time you took to talk to me.
Thank you to you for inviting me. Thank you.
Nagustuhan ko talaga ang interview na 'to with, Viviana Merina at narinig ko yung example niya, nagbigay siya ng examples about dun sa kanyang, home country sa Mexico at napaisip din ako 'di ba kasi, meron ding mga Filipino organizations na pumunta dito sa No to CANSEC dito sa protest against the trade show. For example, alam natin na in the past, the Canadian government has been complicit sa arms trade with the administration in the Philippines even when these administrations are under investigation for human rights violations. And then, but Canada continues to, call itself a peacekeeping nation. Alam nga natin na in the past, there is a record of Canadian governments selling or attempting to sell weapons and fighter aircrafts sa administration ng Pilipinas. Nagustuhan ko rin yung sinabi ni Viviana Merina na importanteng every year we show up dito sa conference na to kasi we have to continue to resist and to expose kung ano ba talaga ang epekto ng mga trade shows na ganito sa taong bayan. So dapat every year nandun tayo at dapat lagi lang tayong merong goal to also invite more people to understand kung bakit ba importanteng pag-usapan itong trade show na to at paano siya nagko-contribute sa ongoing wars sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo or kung paano siya nagko-contribute sa repression.
Kagaya nung sinabi ni Vivian sa interview na hindi ito masyadong alam ng mga tao na ito yung nangyayari. Kaya, like what you said, it's important to show up. Just to add up to what Viviana mentioned in the interview, hindi lang din sa Pilipinas at Mexico laganap ang militarization ng US at Canada. Sabi nga sa statement ng International League of People Struggles, or ILPS, maraming anti-war activists ang dumalo sa protestang ito. Kagaya na lang ng mga young Palestinians who joined to denounce Canada's support for the Israel's regime despite its very brutal violence against Palestinian communities. Andyan din ang mga human rights advocates from the Philippines who are continuously asking Canada for its reapproachment with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of the well-known Ferdinand Marcos, who led a brutal dictatorship regime in the 70s. And right now, si Marcos Jr., as the current president, has worsened the armed forces of the Philippines' record of extrajudicial killings. Andyan din ang mga demonstrators from Peru. Sinasabi nila na itong mga weapons from Canada ay pwedeng gamitin ng mga Peruvian police to use its force on crowds with live ammunition. And dozens of Peruvians have actually died in the street demonstrations since its last president, Dina Boluarte, came to power. So matotal, this goes to show how Canada and the US use its arm with a primary focus on protecting resources extraction from countries like Mexico, Philippines, and Peru, military expansion, heightened counterinsurgency tactics, economic growth for the imperialist nations and big bourgeoisie, and to provoke inter-imperialist wars. Ito ang ginagawa ng US at Canada. To end this segment of Pinoy TaU at Talakayan, baka pwede nating tapusin sa isang magandang awitin ng Himig Masa. Ang pamagat po nito ay Tyrant. Tara, pakinggan natin.
Marching, guns are blazing in villages far and wide. Machines extracting, corporations stealing. Well, that is ours. Drones are flying, surveillance whipping to quell but for rights. Government silencing, laws removing our fundamental they kill us with tanks, they crush us, but from the ground we rise. With loss, they suppress us. With rose, they repress us, but our voices still heard up high. With fear, they silence us. With jails, they muzzle us. The spirit cannot die. Resistance must reign, tyranny must die. Armies sweeping, guns are swaying in cities far and wide. Profits flowing, corporations taking, well, that is ours. Motorcycles roaring, bullets hailing, at innocence side by side. Government silencing, laws removing our fundamental rights. With guns, they kill us. With tanks, they crush us. But from the ground we still rise. With laws, they suppress us. With roads, they repress us. But our voices still heard up high. With fear, they silence us. With jails, they muzzle us. Our spirit cannot die. Resistance must reign, tyranny must die. With guns, they kill us. With tanks, they crush us.
CANSEC! Canada out of NATO and NORAD!
Canada out! NATO and NORAD!
Canada out of NATO and NORAD!
Okay, maraming salamat muli sa inyong pagsubaybay sa aming segment. Ako muli si Jules, naghahatid sa inyo ng mga fresh na perspectives sa ating Pinoy talakayan at usapan o Pinoy TaU.
Siyempre, to stay updated sa happening sa ating community, ito ang mga events at announcements. Sa June 10, maaari niyong bisitahin ang Pinoy Fiesta and Trade Show sa Toronto mula 10 a.m. hanggang 9 p.m. Ang location ay sa Albert Campbell Square sa may Scarborough. Sa June 16 naman, magkakaroon ng selebrasyon ng Philippine Independence Day Gala Night hosted by Kalayaan Filipino Cultural Organization. Gaganapin ito sa Mississauga Grand Banquet and Event Center simula ng 5:30 p.m. Ang tickets dyan ay $85 per person.
Importanteng alalahanin na bagamat mayroong Philippine Independence Day, patuloy pa rin ang malakas na impluwensya ng mga dayuhang bansa sa Pilipinas. Makikita natin sa kolonyal na mentalidad kung saan mas ginugusto ang mga foreign products kaysa sa mga produktong Pinoy. Ang mga patuloy na hindi patas na kasunduan, pagpapalawak ng mga US military bases sa Pilipinas, at ngayon nakikita natin ang patuloy na mas lalong pagpapalawak ng prosyentong maaaring kamkanin ng dayuhan sa mga Filipino businesses, sa mga lupa at sa mga natural resources.
Magandang paalala yan, Jules. Tuloy pa ang paglaban para sa totoong kalayaan ng Pilipinas. Sa June 24 naman, inaanyayahan tayo ng Care Workers Connection Education and Support Organization o CESO na sumama sa summer picnic nila sa May Park, Downs View Park mula 12 p.m. hanggang 4 p.m. Masayang piknikan yan. Libre ang pagsali, libre ang pananghalian, at may libreng palaro. Isama na ang buong pamilya at i-enjoy ang magandang panahon ngayong summer.
Interesado ba kayo na maging bahagi ng Radyo Migrante? Halina't sumali sa Radyo Migrante Collective. There are open positions for new researchers, scriptwriters, interviewers, co-hosts, editors, and social media coordinators. Message nyo lang kami sa aming Instagram, Facebook o email at mahahanap nyo kami as Radyo Migrante o Radyo Migrante Toronto.
At dito nagtatapos ang isa na namang makabuluhang episode ng Radyo Migrante. O di ba, kakahello pa lang mag-goodbye na agad. Nabitin din ba kayo? Sige, ipagpatuloy na lang natin ito next Sunday para sa mga usaping nakasentro sa Filipino Heritage Month.
Mukhang naubos na din ang mga kape ng ating manggagawa. Sana po ay naging malinamnam ito kasama sa pakikinig ng Radyo Migrante. Kung gusto niyo ng mga shoutout, mga idol, mag-comment lang po kayo under our Instagram posts. Salamat!
Sa tulong ng mga kababayan natin na bumubuo ng Radyo Migrante, kay Viviana Merina ng International Migrants Alliance at higit sa lahat sa inyo pong mga nakikinig sa Radyo Migrante tuwing linggo mula 1:00 hanggang 2:00 ng hapon. Maraming salamat po.
At para po sa ating huling awitin, pakinggan po ulit natin ang Migranteng Pilipino ni Carl Ramirez. Hanggang sa susunod ulit mga kababayan, muli, mabuhay po kayo at mabuhay ang bayang Pilipinas!
Saan mang dako ng mundo, lahat ng api at tinapuso,